All right, so we have access to the first unit we have ever renovated and never rented. So come on in. While we are doing this turnover, we figured we'd show you some of the design choices we did, and maybe we'll throw in some before and after photos. So first thing we did was we moved the kitchen. We actually moved the kitchen, bathroom, and what we created a laundry room. We moved the kitchen to this bigger room, which is where you first walk in. Previously, this was like maybe a dining room you'd consider it. Wasn't too much of anything, to be honest. So we decided to pull that out, put a nice big island in here with granite countertops. We found that tenants want a big kitchen. This is also a pretty big unit, which we'll get into in a little bit. So having a decent sized kitchen was important. It doesn't have the most storage, which is something I wish we did a little more thought on. Again, this was our first property, so we were kind of learning as we went. Nowadays, we probably would make sure we put more storage in or a little more thought into the storage, but it's still not bad, and I'll show you right behind you is our laundry room that we created, which can also work as a pantry. So the idea was maybe this could be dry food storage as well as the laundry room, since it's right off the kitchen. So a couple design choices. We went with all stainless steel as we do in all our properties. These cabinets are actually Lowe's, I believe. These ones were Lowe's. We have since moved to more higher end cabinets. These are not soft close or anything. They're just basic cabinets. Now what we do are higher end solid wood cabinets, or at least solid wood fronts with plywood sides with soft close. Again, we went with a large sink. The reasons for that, again, is just practicality. The whole goal here is to make people feel comfortable where they're living, and no one wants a sink that's very shallow. Another thing we chose to do back in the day when we renovated was this backsplash. Now, on a higher end property, I 100% would do backsplash. In this property, I feel like we probably could have got away with just a 3-inch riser and painted the wall behind it. It's personal preference. I don't think it adds enough value to justify the time and effort that went into it. It looks great. I love it. It's held up well. I just think a 3-inch riser of granite would have saved us time and money ultimately. Moving on to some of the other things we changed. So I mentioned we moved the kitchen. Originally, this was the kitchen. It was a galley style kitchen. And if you walk in here with me, you'll see we turned it into the bathroom. So in this property, we had to restructure the whole plumbing and the electrical, which wasn't a big deal because it needed a whole gut anyways. We were going down to the studs, so changing those things at that point, you might as well. So we turned this into the kitchen, into the bathroom. I'll show you on screen what it used to look like. We have a full-size shower in here. We talked about not doing tubs in a previous video. Reason we do showers is it saves on water if we're paying the water bill, which in this case we are, as well as tenants tend to like just a shower over a tub instead of stepping over into the tub. We do a glass shower, so even from the beginning, we were doing glass shower doors to help contain the water as best we can, and honestly, it's worked very well. We've had no issues of water leaks in this property. There's a unit downstairs, so make sure all the water was properly draining and contained was important. Went with a double vanity again because this is a pretty big unit in terms of bedrooms. I believe we have 4 bedrooms, potentially 5 if you wanted to reconfigure one of the other ones. So make sure we have double vanity, and there's another bathroom upstairs. This used to be the bathroom, and since we moved the kitchen out here, we moved the bathroom over to this side, which was a bigger room. We now had a completely empty room here, and I'll show you what this used to look like as the bathroom. But since we were opening up plumbing, we were able to make this a laundry room. So we have in-unit, full-size washer and dryers in both these units. Something I highly recommend is looking for maybe used appliances, but definitely going to a Lowe's outlet. These happen to be used appliances, and we've had our mixed reviews on used appliances. These have worked out. These are now 5 years old, these machines, since we got them, and we've had no issues with them. But we've also bought used appliances where they die in less than a year. So I think nowadays we'd probably stick to using the Lowe's outlet or some discount store, but they're still brand new appliances. So yeah, so that's this room. We still went with the full tile in here just to contain, again, the water, as well as it just elevates the property. Another major thing we do in all our units now is making, if we can at least, is putting the breaker box in unit, especially if it's a multifamily. So this breaker box is a sub panel to the main breaker in the basement. What that means is there's a big cable that runs down to the main panel down in the basement, and runs all the way up here, which gives us now our full breaker panel. What this allowed us to do was, instead of rerunning wires, since we're on the second and third floor, all the way down to the basement when we were rewiring this apartment, all we had to do was run it to here, and then we could run the main wire, one wire, down to the basement. This also allows the tenant to have direct access, where if they pop a breaker from a blender or a hairdryer, they can come in rather than giving us a call trying to figure out which breaker's theirs and how to fix it. This makes it a lot easier and demands much less. It is important to label everything. Not only is it code, but it helps the tenant as well as us out when we're coming in to do maintenance. Walking through the rest of the property, we have living room number 1. Yes, there are 2 living rooms. This we did pretty much nothing. We put some paint on the walls, which even then we probably could have skipped. The paint that was in here wasn't that bad. But we wanted to brighten up and warm up the place, so we went with a kind of tan looking wall. We've gone to a slightly different, more off-white look now, so we probably don't really use this color much anymore, but the idea was to use the same color for the whole property, so we'd be able to patch no problem. I would say within the next year or 2, we're probably going to have to repaint this whole unit anyways, so this paint is probably on its last legs. We do have some blinds that we're in the process of replacing. You can see these blinds are 5 years old. I know they look terrible. This is only from sun damage. These are the lower price, cheaper blinds that you can get from Amazon or Home Depot. So this is what happens. But the good news is we can replace them pretty quickly because they are so cheap. We can stay on top of that. Some of them have held up well. These ones, because it's direct sunlight, did not. We have what used to be, I guess still could be considered the master bedroom. These floors are original to how we bought them. So we've done nothing to these floors. It just goes to show some good polish can make a huge difference. So they didn't need to be refinished by us. We just left them as is. And again, we just threw paint on in this room as well. The front door where we came in, another bedroom, same story in there. And then the biggest change to this unit, we initially left it as is, what we just showed you. But there was a third floor that was completely unused and had the opportunity to be used. Had a ton of square footage, and we wanted to connect it in. We thought about adding a third unit, but at the time the zoning didn't allow for that. So rather than fighting the zoning board and looking for changes to make it a 3 unit, we left it as a 2 unit, and we instead added bedrooms and a second living room up here as well as another bathroom. So this whole staircase was built. This is, if you know anything about Turner staircases, there's a lot of code around how wide they have to be. So this was built to code, which caused a whole change to everything up here. We added around 900 square feet, I want to say. So coming up here, you'll notice this is the only carpet we have in the property. The reason we did carpet here is because there is a unit below this, and we wanted to mitigate any noise that might be coming from someone running up and down the staircase. So that's the only time we use carpet. Other than that, we're going to use tile and LVP pretty much everywhere else. So you walk right into this living room, this second living room. It does have a slightly slanted, but the rest of the roof is full height. I want to say it's like 8 foot. This railing was a DIY railing I installed. Very easy cable railing from View Rail. Highly recommend them. They were pretty easy to work with. And then this railing was a different company. I think it was just from Home Depot. I don't recall the company itself, but I was able to merge the 2 different pieces to make it to code. So prior, there was nothing here. There was some drywall that was unfinished, but we ended up having to build out the walls. There's actually not only insulation between the rafters here, but there's also, it's either 1 inch or 2 inch of foam built out, and then drywall on top of that to build it up to current modern building code, which was required by the city. So this whole second floor is built to just like you'd build a new property. We have LVP everywhere, which is kind of our go-to, is using this LVP. It's scratch resistant, waterproof, very easy to install. Highly recommend this LVP. The specific one is Life Proof from Home Depot. I've had great luck with that, so no reason to change. We also installed baseboard electric heating up here. There is gas hydronic heating baseboard downstairs. So it's 2 different heating systems, upstairs electric, downstairs is gas baseboard. We went with these just because of ease, honestly. The cost is very cheap on them, as well as it was a lot easier to install some electrical wire than it was to run pipes to run hot water through. So that's why we went with this. This area tends to not use or have in-unit AC. Typically people are putting their own window units in this area, so we tried not to over improve the property beyond what this area demanded. We did new doors in all of them, but we did keep these frames. These frames are all the old frames, and luckily we were able to work with new doors and fit them in. Did have to cut them a little bit to the right size, but it worked out. This is what I would now consider maybe the new master bedroom. It's probably the biggest room in the whole property. It's on the 3rd floor. You got a pretty decent view, and you got brand new windows, which is nice. Something we had to change in here was there was a door here going to the bathroom. It was kind of a 2-door system bathroom. So we sealed this door up. That way it could be a proper bedroom. And then we kept this door over here to this bathroom, which actually already existed. This was not built, or this was not built with permits. We made that very clear to the building department. We knew what we were getting ourselves into, and they were willing. They did a couple small minor inspections, made sure things looked decent. We inherited the house like this, so they were willing to work with us. We were upfront with them. They were willing to work with us. They knew we were trying to do the best to our ability. Another feature we had to install for fire code was, of course, smoke detectors. Not only did it have to be standard smoke detectors, but they actually had to be interconnected. Now, one way to do that is a physical wire between this smoke detector and the ones in the bedrooms. But a unique workaround that the town was willing to work with was Bluetooth connected ones. So these smoke detectors actually work with all the other smoke detectors because they're all connected via Bluetooth, which meets the code and didn't have to rely on hiring an electrician to run brand new wires everywhere just to connect the smoke alarm system. So they're a little bit more expensive, but when you consider the cost of electrician, huge savings. And last but not least, this is the 4th bedroom. So very small bedroom, but we found a lot of tenants then use it as an office. Or in the case of the girls moving in here, I believe they took all the other bedrooms. Maybe this will be storage. Either way, it's a nice extra space. Has a nice big walk-in closet.